Okay. Good evening. The January 3rd, 2012 meeting of the Eden Prairie City Council will now come to order. I'll rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Open podium is an opportunity for Eden Prairie residents to address the council on issues related to Eden Prairie city government before each council meeting, those are typically the first and third Tuesdays of each month, from 6:30 to 6:55 in the council chambers. If you want to speak at open podium, please contact the city manager's office by noon of that date at 949-8412, and let us know your name, your phone number, and the subject matter. If time permits, after scheduled speakers are finished, the mayor will open the floor to unscheduled speakers, such as we had tonight. This portion of the meeting is not recorded or televised. If you have any questions, again, please contact the city manager's office. The first item we have tonight is under the heading of proclamations and presentations, and we have a proposal for modifications to the Eden Prairie Manifesto, and I would like to call forth at this point Pam Spera, if you would kind of go over with us the proposed changes. Thank you.
The proposed change that the commission voted on was to add to the language the absence of religion. The commission voted that this was more inclusive, that it would include a group that the commission did not feel was addressed by the manifesto as it presently reads. Okay. So I think that we discussed this at the workshop, I guess a couple months back, and we sort of went back to the drawing board and relooked at the language, and the choice that the commission voted on was absence of religion. Lack thereof was a choice. The commission thought that the word lack had, although the commission would probably be okay with that one as well, but their first choice was absence because it did not have, in the commission's opinion, any negative connotations, whereas lack maybe is a more negative word. So.
All right. Thank you. We're going to open this for council comment, and if there are any other further questions, we'll have you come back up if it's something you need to address. Thank you very much. Questions, comments? Councilmember Nelson.
I know there's been a lot of work put in by the commission. However, I'm not sure that this really clarifies things. In fact, to my mind, I think it makes it less clear. I prefer just the regardless of religious affiliation. I think that covers everyone. And I don't know of a single person who doesn't have a philosophy of life or they belong to an organized religion. There's some piece in their life that does dictate how they approach life. And that can be everything from Ebenezer Scrooge to It's Only Mine to somebody who has a much wider worldview. But regardless of religious affiliation, I think covers whether you're affiliated or not affiliated. And I don't think personally that anyone has an absence of religion, not if you look at it as philosophy. So I do not plan to support this because I believe what we have is clear, and that this doesn't really add in a direction that I really would like to go.
Okay. Any other council comments?
Go ahead now.
Well, Councilmember
I guess I would agree with Councilmember Nelson. I think that absence of religion could encompass people that don't believe in God, as well as the people who do believe in God. It does cover all those things. I think to change it really doesn't benefit anything. So I guess I don't support the change as well.
Okay. Councilmember Case.
It's kind of nice we come here and we haven't talked to each other at all. It's really nice to hear everybody's thoughts. I wasn't sure if I was alone in this. I agree with both council members, Nelson and Aho. And I think what confused me when actually at our workshop, I think when we first started to talk about it was, is it confusing as it stands? And it doesn't feel confusing to me. I understand that for someone who truly believe themselves to be atheist and having no religious affiliation, that somehow the idea of regardless of religious affiliation feels like they're not in that. But to me, that's a 0 to 100 continuum that fits that. And the other piece on this, as I was looking through all the other, the list here of regardless of religious affiliation, race, ethnic heritage, gender, age, many of those we have no choice in, our race, gender, age, but the religion and I think the ethnic heritage, and on one hand we don't have choice of how we're born, but whether we celebrate that heritage or if it's definable. I mean, for me, I don't know what my heritage is. It's English, German, Scottish. It's whatever, but it's not a celebrated ethnic identity piece of me, and therefore you could argue that we should have absence of ethnic heritage, because in contrast to people that celebrate their ethnic heritage, I would be someone, I guess, who didn't. I mean, it gets to the point that we can break this apart so much that it loses its meaning, and I think it's rather understandable as it stands right now, and I would prefer leaving it.
I guess I feel much the same way. I don't have any conflict with the meaning of the change proposed. It's simply that I feel that the way the current manifesto is written embraces the meaning of that, and I don't think it would change anything about the way we function as an organization in dealing with members of the public or employees. And I get your point about the ethnicity thing or some of these other factors. If you start breaking it apart, economic status, low status, high economic status, do we start breaking all of this down? I think the beauty of something like this manifesto is to have it simple and all-inclusive and have meaning to people. And to me, this doesn't add any meaning to it. So, Councilmember Butcher?
We had a long discussion about this at the workshop, as we had mentioned, and I think there were two things that really mattered to me. One was that the Commission spent so much time considering this and looking deeply into it, which is what you're tasked with. And so it was meaningful to me that the Commission brought forward something for us to look at that they had strong feelings about. As far as clarity, I could go either way on that. I'm actually comfortable with the way it's written, but I do not find it offensive or difficult in any way to have the modification. So I hear what you're saying, and I agree with you to an extent, but I do think that it is it's something that the Commission has brought up, and they are advisory, so it truly rests in our hands in terms of what to do with it. And while I am comfortable with what the Commission had to say on it, I also support my fellow council. So I'm okay with leaving it the way it is as well.
All right. Seeing that, do we even make a motion?
Madam Mayor, if there's no motion, the matter dies for lack of a motion. If there's a motion and no second, the matter dies for lack of a second. If there's a motion and a second, then you need to vote on it.
Okay. All right. Is there a motion? Okay. Hearing none, the motion dies.
Matter dies.
The matter dies.
For lack of a motion.
I would just like to reiterate, though, I'm sure that the Commission spent a lot of time discussing this, and we definitely do appreciate all of the time that was spent on it. And I know that when it was presented to us in September, it didn't seem like there was a unanimous sense of direction from the Commission at that time either. So I think it's just kind of great to kind of put it to rest for a while. Nobody has a conflict from what I heard about the intent of that modification. It was just more really wordsmithing. So, Okay. All right, is there a motion to approve the agenda?
Move approval.
Second.
Any items to add? I know City Manager Getchell wants to address us on one issue. Anything else? Okay, all in favor of the agenda as amended?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Is there a motion of approval for the minutes from the council workshop held on Tuesday, December 6th?
Move approval?
Second?
Any corrections to those minutes? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Is there a motion for approval of the minutes from the city council meeting held the same evening?
Move approval.
Second?
Any corrections to those minutes? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
The motion passes. Next item is a consent calendar, and I know that, Mr. Lotthammer, you would like to pull item J for just clarification?
Yes, Your Honor.
Go ahead.
On item J, it's our resolution accepting donations and gifts for the entire year. And the last item on the in-kind donations, which is listed as Sun Life Assurance Company of Canada Parkland, donated land of outlots A and B Fountain Place Apartments. That item, we've not yet executed the deed transfer documents, and so we would like you to consider everything else on the both the in-kind and the cash donations for acceptance, with the exception of that particular item. It's likely we'll have it at our next council meeting for acceptance of that in-kind donation.
Okay, thank you. So that item is part of the consent calendar with that modification. So that's the intent. Councilor, is there anything to pull for discussion there? If not, would somebody make a motion?
I move approval of the consent calendar.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Payment of claims. Is there a motion?
Move approval.
Second.
Any items to question? Okay, roll call, please.
Councilmember Aho.
Aye.
Councilmember Butcher Wickstrom.
Aye.
Councilmember Case.
Aye.
Councilmember Nelson.
Aye.
Mayor Terlukens.
Aye. The next item is under ordinances and resolutions, and it's the first reading of an ordinance amending City Code Chapter 5 relating to adoption of a domestic partnership registry. Mr. Getchell.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. We had mentioned that the manifesto item came forward from the Human Rights and Diversity Commission, and this is another item from their 2011 work plan that we have brought forward to you tonight as a first reading. And this is also something that was discussed at length at a workshop this summer, and that is a domestic partnership registry. This is something that several communities in our area have approved and undertaken, and the registry provides a means for unmarried couples who reside in Eden Prairie to be able to document their relationship, and that may allow them to receive benefits from their work or whatever benefit they can receive from a documented domestic partnership. And from our city's perspective, we've modeled our particular ordinance after Hopkins, in that we do require in Eden Prairie in this proposal that you do reside in our city. There are some other cities that, as long as you live or work, but the feeling of the commission was that the stricter language of actually residing in the city would make it much more straightforward and probably simpler from an administrative standpoint as well. And once again, several cities around us, Crystal, Duluth, Edina, Golden Valley, Hopkins, Maplewood, Minneapolis, Richfield, Robbinsdale, Rochester, St. Louis Park, and St. Paul, have all enacted such a registry. And the research shows that it's anywhere from a half a dozen registries a year to maybe up to 10 or 15. So from a staff perspective, we feel that it can be a very simple administrative operation that could be run through the city center as well. And we do have the members of the commission as well as Molly Cuevamaki to answer any questions you would have about the implementation of the program. And this would be a proposal for the first reading tonight of an ordinance enacting this registry.
Okay. Council questions. Councilmember Aho.
Well,
I don't really have any questions at this time. I've done a fair amount of research on this and talked to quite a few people, and unfortunately for you, I've got a fair amount to talk about on this topic, but I would like to talk about it because I do feel it is an important issue, and I think it's something that we really need to seriously consider and to take into serious consideration. So I'll just read some of my comments that I've put together for you. I feel really at this time that it's really not responsible or prudent for the city of Eden Prairie or our council to become engaged in this social issue that's really going to be addressed by voters at a state level because there's currently legislation in the courts in Minnesota in 2012. This issue is really not a new issue, and I really don't think it should be brought to the council and addressed at a city level as a way of bypassing or circumventing the processes and procedures that are done at the state level and at the county level. Really, I feel our job is to really focus on budget, infrastructure, safety and security of our residents and guests and business people. It's really not our job to create registries. The county registers marriages, county registers deaths, things like that. The cities don't really get involved in that, and I think that for us to start doing that really sets a different precedent. I think it's problematic in a number of ways in which I'll discuss. Just some little historical background on this. Minnesota first dealt with the issue of marriage between same-sex partners several times over the last few years, a number of years. In 71, it was brought into the Minnesota Supreme Court, and it was overturned or didn't go forward, and so it stayed as a man and a woman, and they dismissed it. It was brought to the U.S. Supreme Court, and it was dismissed. In 1977, the Minnesota legislature addressed this issue and specifically passed an amended statute that defines marriage as far as its validity in law is concerned as a civil contract between a man and a woman. In 96, the Federal Defense of Marriage Act was signed into law, affecting all 50 states. In 1997, the Minnesota legislature specifically passed its own version of what was referred to as Defense of Marriage Act, clarifying that lawful marriage may be contracted only between persons of the opposite sex and went on specifically to prohibit marriage between persons of the same sex. In 2010, May, we had 3 same-sex couples filed a lawsuit in Hennepin County District Court, and they argued that the Minnesota's ban on marriage between same-sex partners violates due process, equal protection, and freedom of association rights. In March 7th of 2011, the Hennepin County District Judge rejected their argument and dismissed the lawsuit. On July 11th, 2011, the couples filed an appeal with the Minnesota Court of Appeals. That court case is still pending, has not been decided yet. So I really think that without knowing the outcome of that, it's really prudent and reasonable for our city to wait for the outcome of this decision by the courts, which affects Hennepin County and us as well. Most recently, in May of 2011, the Minnesota House and the Senate passed a bill that proposed an amendment to the Minnesota Constitution that states that a marriage is the union of one man and one woman. And this amendment will be voted on in the 2012 November election. So the issue of marriage and its definition will most likely be resolved for Minnesota in 2012 in the election or by the courts. And I don't think Eden Prairie should get out ahead of this issue in any way. I think it puts us potentially in conflict with that. Could be, and it's not a good position for us to be in as a city. And I really don't think that, from a pragmatic standpoint, that there's really anyone in our city government who has the authority to determine whether or not two people are responsible for each other, the necessities of life, as it's stated, or whether they are committed to each other. How are we as a city going to follow up on all these things that are stated in the ordinance? How are we going to make sure that those things are taken into consideration? I think it really makes it a very vague and hard thing to enforce, and I think it just puts us in a bad state. So for these reasons, I plan on voting against the first reading of this ordinance, and I really don't think that we should get involved in this as a city. I think that's really outside of our purview.
Thank you. Other council members? Are there any questions of the commission on the intent? Councilmember Wickstrom.
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. Now, is this an ordinance? Or, okay, that's one question. Is it an ordinance?
It is.
Okay. And then the second question is, do we have other registries like this? Is there, different language and different intent, but have we ever done registries before in the city?
I can't think of a registry. If I think of similar programs where we're documenting information, it might be, the issuance of different licenses that we have, but I can't think of a similar registry.
I have one more question. Sure. So you're saying that no counties, Hennepin County, they often are the holder of information, which is what this is. So none of the counties are taking on sort of the responsibility of registering this domestic partnership.
That's correct. I believe it's been something that's come about from the cities.
Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Councilmember Nelson.
Well, it seems like it works in an awful lot of cities. It doesn't really have anything to do with marriage. It's domestic partner. From what the commission told us, it's used for both traditional couples and same-sex couples that for whatever reason have chosen not to marry. I'm not sure it gives them a whole lot to do this, to tell you the truth, but I don't have any particular objections to it, too. If this was marriage, you're right, the state, it's in the court, but it isn't. So it's just registration of domestic partners for whatever that gives a person. And, for whatever reason, if there's somebody that feels this does, it takes very little time. It's becoming general in a lot of the cities around us. I guess I don't see any particular reason not to do it. I'm not sure it conveys a lot of benefit, but it seems to be, if there are people that it would benefit, I guess I don't object to that, simply because it is domestic partner registration. And I can think of one thing we do register. If you have a security system in your house, you have to register it with the city.
True. Councilmember Case.
I think we registered dogs and...
That's what I was just thinking. Animals.
We're making our list, checking it twice. Well, Councilmember Aho is correct. It's a controversial issue, particularly when the sound of domestic partnership begins to sound like the defense of marriage debate. And I guess I would argue this isn't. Well, it's certainly not just a defense of marriage debate. I would argue it's not even a defense of marriage debate, but one could argue that side. But it's not just that. And I agree with Councilmember Nelson that on some level it's gender neutral, because in the reading that I did, the states have passed it. Several have talked about it offers something to senior citizens who wish to cohabitate, heterosexual relationships of senior citizens who wish to cohabitate for health benefits, possible retirement benefits, and death benefits. So this actually has the potential, again, to go beyond just being a defense of marriage issue. It's not just that. And I also agree with Councilmember Nelson that it really doesn't offer a lot, but it offers a lot psychologically, which I think is significant. But it doesn't really offer a lot legally. Therefore, on the other side of that, it's not a big danger legally. It does, I pulled this off the internet, it does not confer any of the 1,138 legal rights afforded to married couples by federal law. It does not grant any state legislative protection because it can be ignored by hospitals, et cetera. But the one thing that I think it does do, and this is why I think so many states have passed it, Maine, Hawaii, Maryland, New Jersey, Colorado, D.C., Oregon, Wisconsin, Washington, as well as a host of cities, it helps people get health care with significant others and other benefits that are granted to significant others. And 41% of all Fortune 500 companies offer domestic partner benefits. So if you're on a registry and you work for one of the 41% of the Fortune 500 companies, this could be a help. And I guess on a small, I don't mean a small level, on a particular issue level, Brad, I would agree with you that it goes a little bit beyond the purview typically of what cities do or have done. But on a grand level, I think it is very prudent and responsible, not to sound grandioser, but to work for the freedom of all of our residents to pursue happiness. So I think it could be argued anything we do to help individuals obtain their freedom is an appropriate thing for government at any level to participate in. So I do support this. I don't think it offers a lot. I think it offers something. And I think for our residents that it does matter to, and particularly people regardless of gender or in what type of relationship, who are looking for some kind of an official historical background data that would help them go to their company, and again, many companies out in the world offer this, that this would be helpful, and therefore it would help our residents. So I would support this.
Councilmember Wickstrom.
Well, I want to say thank you, and I appreciate the work that Councilmember Aho and Councilmember Case did on collecting information about this issue and how it informs us. I have to say that I think the registry does provide something for the individuals who want it and who wish to use it. I think it creates flexibility for residents. I think it is an action of inclusivity for all residents, and I think it also strengthens our manifesto through actions. So I would like to support the registry, and I also want to say that this is a very insignificant cost to the city, and I think what it will provide for the residents who wish to use the registry is meaningful and would certainly be worth the city creating the registry for them.
Thank you. Councilmember Aho.
I just have a couple of follow-up points on that, just in response to some of the comments that you guys have made. If we look at the benefits of this and the potential ramifications from a city perspective, if we provide this registry and we have employees that sign up for a domestic registration, does that mean that we have to provide them benefits as we would a married couple? So that has ramifications to us both financially and policy-wise. How do you define then cases where people are in polygamous relationships? Wouldn't they would have a marriage relationship, a husband and wife, a spousal relationship that would qualify as under the state? And now if they wanted to register their other relationships, what is to stop that? So I think it opens up areas that we don't really necessarily want to get involved in. And so I just add that for some consideration for you to think about when you're considering this.
Well, this does cover your last one, because it says do not have any other domestic partners and are not married. So it seems to be a two-person partnership rather than a multi-person partnership.
How are we going to check on that? Who's
Yeah,
going
is
to
that
check on
something that we would be checking on?
What Mr. Councilmember Aho has brought up on a few occasions, and you can see through the application, is that we're asking them to abide by what they affirm as domestic partnerships, and we don't have a process where we follow up and enforce that. So that's true. That's true, that you're going on the information provided in the application.
So if, I'm just trying to figure out how this registry would work. If somebody who had registered with the city said, I need verification of my registry because I want to get insurance benefits for my domestic partner, would we send a letter to that company saying, so-and-so and so-and-so are registered as domestic partners, but it would disavow any, or it would clearly state that we have not done a background search on either of these people to make sure that they are not already married to somebody else?
Right, and I think that the feeling is that the one application sheet of paper that they fill out and they attest to, that we notarize that they did that, would be the only document that we would provide, and we would provide it to them. We would not provide it to an employer or anybody else.
I mean, are we going to start getting into providing blood tests for people and things like that, that they do at the county level? I think it opens us up to issues that we don't want to get involved in.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
We're not certifying anything. In fact, what I just heard Mr. Getchell say is that all we're doing is giving back to the person the document that says they're registered with the City of Eden Prairie according to their own word. But then if they were to take that somewhere, it's the company. I mean, I guess I'm questioning now the corporations in America that do give benefits to domestic partnerships. It behooves them. I mean, that's the ball's in their court. All we would be doing would be offering our residents a chance to make a public statement. We're not certifying anything, we're not licensing, we're not verifying, we're not validating. We're offering them a forum, an avenue to make a public declaration. They take that public declaration somewhere, and then if they get something for it, that's up to whoever's giving. We're not giving anything. Am I getting this? So
Yeah, and it's not much difference than a marriage license.
Exactly.
When I went on my husband's health insurance, I didn't have to show a marriage certificate.
So I don't see us being vulnerable, culpable. We're simply allowing a stage or a format for someone to make a public declaration, which then they will go and use however they, desire. And if they misuse it, it's not us, it's them. And if a company mistakenly does, that's up to that company. And again, I agree with you that if the company, if somebody's a polygamist somehow and they try to get benefits for their 3 husbands or 3 wives, who's at fault there? I mean, clearly that person, So I think it's just the format of the public declaration piece that I think is valid.
Mr. Rosso, did you have a comment?
Only with respect to the city providing benefits as a result of doing this. We're prohibited by state law to do that. So
It's good to know.
Councilmember Nelson.
Yeah, I just wanted to reiterate one of the things I said before. This is being done all over. We're sort of following in the more conservative vein of it, having to live in Eden Prairie. And it doesn't, it's been going on for several years now. It doesn't seem to create problems. And I don't expect it will here any more than it has in Edina or Richfield or Minneapolis or Golden Valley or wherever they're doing it. So, if we were the first ones out and there was no past history on this, it's a little different than taking something that's been going on for a while and just bringing it in here as well. I think a lot of other communities are doing it too. So, I don't see this as being anything more than a historical thing that, they can get back something, and it is domestic partners. So I don't think that we're likely to have any more problems than any other city has who's done it. And we did take a look at what the records were saying in Edina that's next door, and the answers have been it's only a few and it hasn't been a problem, and it's been a wide variety of domestic partners.
Well, in October of 2011, the Inver Grove City Heights City Council had a similar proposal brought forward, and they did reject it.
That's true. Just a couple of comments that I would like to make. But when I look at this, I don't look at it as a defense of marriage issue. I might feel very differently if that was what we were discussing. But I think of it more as supporting the mission of the Eden Prairie Manifesto, something that doesn't have any strong legal ramifications. And I think about people that I know that are in a situation where something like this might have been beneficial. For instance, I have a friend who is divorced with kids, who lives with another woman who's divorced with kids. There's no homosexual relationship going on, but they take care of each other's children, and they may find themselves in a situation where one child gets hurt at school and the other mother comes over and wants to be able to help, has no foreseeable rights or legal rights. I don't know, how does the school handle a situation like that now? I don't know.
Well, you register with the school and tell them.
Right, and this would be further verification that we are registered, and here's a copy of our certificate. Or I think of friends that are in heterosexual relationships, not married, long-term, 5, 6, 7 years. If something were to happen to one of them health-wise, the other person would want to be able to get information to provide assistance and support for that person when they were injured, that kind of thing. And I think that this might come up fairly often, that something like this would be beneficial to heterosexual relationships as well as the homosexual relationships. And I think this isn't talking about marriage. It's not legal. I started trying to make a list. We have benefits here that the Commission has elucidated, and I tried to make a list of cons to doing something like this. And because it doesn't have any legal bearing, I couldn't come up with a single thing that's really a con about it. When you, Councilmember Aho, started talking about the polygamy situation, that kind of got me thinking about it. But as Councilmember Case pointed out, that's no different than the situation now if a person is working for a company that provides benefits to a domestic partner. The responsibility, the onus lies upon the person who's claiming that this person is their domestic partner. And we are covering that issue by saying don't have any other domestic partners. So I'm feeling comfortable with this, and I know, having talked with some of the council members and mayors from these other cities, that they have not experienced problems with this.
I guess just one further note, I just personally don't see that there's that much of a benefit to people. I don't think companies and other things are going to come looking to the city of Eden Prairie to see what we've said or what we've certified or what we've registered or anything like that. I think to me it's more of an issue that trying to get this out at a city level, at a local level, get this issue out so that it can be used as a way to apply pressure on higher levels of government to pass the same kinds of things.
Well, and that you're right, and that does happen. We saw that with the smoking ban issue, that it took a few cities and counties taking action before it happened at a state level.
So it seems like more of a political issue, a political tool than something that's really something that the city should be involved in. And that's one of the reasons I have a real problem with it.
Okay. Council, this is not a public hearing. Are there any other comments? Hearing none, is there a motion?
I move to approve first reading of an ordinance amending City Code Chapter 5 relating to adoption of a domestic partnership registry.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
All right, the motion passes. Thank you. That brings us to appointments. We've got a whole bunch to go through, but this could go pretty quickly. The first one is a resolution designating the official city newspaper. Rick, do you want to comment on all of these? Or? How do you want to do this?
I think we can take each one by one, and I don't know if I necessarily need to comment because several of these are reoccurring appointments.
Okay. All right. Is there a motion on the official city newspaper?
Move to adopt resolution designating the Eden Prairie News as the official city newspaper for the year 2012.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
The motion passes. Resolution designating official meeting dates, times, places, and for the Eden Prairie City Council and appointing the acting mayor.
I move to adopt the resolution designating the official meeting dates, time, and place for the City of Eden Prairie Council in 2012 and appointing Councilmember Ron Case as the acting mayor.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Resolution appointing commissioners to the HRA.
I move to adopt the resolution appointing city council members to serve as commissioners for the Eden Prairie Housing and Redevelopment Authority and appointing Nancy Tyra Lukens as chair, Rick Getchow as executive director, and Kathy Nelson as secretary for the year of 2012.
Now, you have been. You haven't been?
No, I have not.
On my form, it says that you've been secretary of the
I
HRA.
thought somebody else was, but
was
you
Kathy.
don't do much for these
Okay,
things.
so you're willing to do it,
Are
Kathy?
you willing to take it again?
Yeah, as long as we don't do a whole lot more of the
Second.
loan things, where you have to sign it about 50 pages.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Resolution appointing the director and alternate director to the SRA, Suburban Rate Authority. That would be,
It's me, so I probably
yes.
shouldn't make the motion,
This would be Councilmember Case as director and Public Works Director Robert Ellis.
I move to adopt resolution designating Councilmember Ron Case as the director and Robert Ellis as the alternate director to the Suburban Rate Authority.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Appointments to the National League of Cities.
I would move to approve appointment of the mayor as delegate and council members as alternates to the National League of Cities.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Appointment to the Municipal Legislative Commission.
Move to approve the appointment of the mayor to the Municipal Legislative Commission.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Appointment to Southwest Cable Commission.
That's you.
I move to approve the appointment of Ron Case to the Southwest Cable Commission.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Appointment to the Eden Prairie Foundation.
Move to approve appointment of Kathy Nelson to the Eden Prairie Foundation.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Appointments to I-494 Corridor Commission. I'm sorry, appointment to 494 Corridor Commission.
Move to approve the appointment of Brad Aho to the I-494 Corridor Commission.
Second.
That's correct.
All in favor?
Aye.
Appointment to the City and School Facilities Use Task Force. That's
Move to approve the appointment of Sherry Wickstrom to the City and School Facilities Use Task Force.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Appointment of an assistant to me as weed inspector.
I don't think he should take away your responsibility. But I would move to appoint Jeff Cordes as very assistant weed inspector for the city of Eden Prairie, making sure you still do your job.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Appointments to Southwest Metro.
I move to appoint Nancy Terlukens to the Southwest Metro Board to serve out the elected official position, and I move to appoint Councilmember Brad Aho to a new term
As citizen.
as citizen representative for a 3-year term to end December 31st, 2014.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The motion passes. Resolution appointing representatives to the Fire Relief Association Board of Trustees. That's
Move to approve the adoption of the resolution appointing Ron Case and Sue Kachiver to the Eden Prairie Fire Relief Association.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. That's the end of our appointments. And now we have a report from the city manager, Mr. Getchell.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I just wanted to add to the agenda tonight one item, and that's related to the work of our fire chief with the fallen firefighter memorial that recently received its full funding. There's been a long membership drive across the state from corporations and from city fire departments to raise money for a new fallen firefighter memorial. And it's currently located in a very small corner of the airport, Minneapolis-St. Paul Airport, but there's been a lot of work to move a new memorial or to construct a new memorial at the state capitol. And our fire chief here in Eden Prairie has been the president of the Minnesota Fire Service Foundation and played a lead role in that effort for a big part of 2011, working to raise the $600,000 necessary from the many fire departments and agencies so the memorial could move forward. They reached their goal. They surpassed their goal. They're able to put additional dollars toward scholarships for families and youth affected by injured or fallen firefighters as well. And I just know from personal experience, our chief did a lot of traveling across the state, a lot of nights and weekends throughout Minnesota, leading this effort and going to a lot of the 800 or so cities with fire departments and within our own community. So I just wanted to give an update on that successful effort and just recognize him for the great work that he did as a real leader, making many, many presentations on a very, very important effort for the fire service statewide, and I think representing our city very well.
Are they still accepting donations?
They are still accepting donations. So I know that our flagship bank here is our treasurer for donations, and people can still give a donation to the Minnesota Fire Service Foundation in care of Flagship Bank, or contact City Hall for additional information. There's been quite a bit of media on reaching the goal, but still taking donations as well.
Mr. Getchell, I know that Chief Espenson's goal was to get 100% of the department to make donations, and I assume with his leadership he probably did that?
He did.
Do you know offhand?
In fact, I talked about the majority of donations coming from firefighters themselves, and the fire department that led the way in the state of Minnesota was Eden Prairie.
Great.
Eden Prairie firefighters. We had a lot of support from Chanhassen and Minneapolis and St. Paul, but our own firefighters led the effort in terms of giving as well. You
Wonderful.
are correct.
Appreciate his dedication. Thank you. Report from the Community Development Director, Ms. Jeremiah.
Your Honor, council members, this item is to approve an agreement between the Department of Employment and Economic Development and the city for a $500,000 forgivable loan to Rosemont Emerson through Deeds Minnesota Investment Fund. We've talked about this a bit before, and as you may recall, Emerson plans to invest $24 million in their existing Eden Prairie facility, and this would include interior improvements as well as exterior improvements, but within the same building footprint that they currently have. And they do have about 600 employees in Eden Prairie currently, 129,000 worldwide. And the one of the conditions of this grant or forgivable loan would be that they add 100 additional employees. And as you can see, this requested action in this agreement is actually between the city and Deed. There would be a subsequent agreement between the city and Rosemont Emerson for disbursement of those funds that we would bring at a future meeting. So we're just kind of the intermediary in this action, and I'll certainly take any questions you may have.
Questions?
I don't have any questions, but I think it is important, as Ms. Jeremiah stated, that for our residents to know that this action doesn't cost the city of Eden Prairie any money, even though it is a $500,000 forgivable grant, loan grant, that it is a pass-through for Eden Prairie.
Thanks for the clarification. Thank you. All right, is there a motion?
Move to approve agreement between the Department of Employment and Economic Development, Deed, and the city for a $500,000 forgivable loan grant to Rosemont Emerson through Deeds Minnesota Investment Fund.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The motion passes. Anything else for the council tonight? Hearing none, is there a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.